everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. We have a quick update on Harry and Meghan's first day in Nigeria. As far as the news cycle has gotten where I live, there has only been the first part of day one happening. And so I will be making a more dedicated update video next week, maybe one or two of them, depending how much news there is coming out of this, including a fashion edition from the Meg. And this weekend we are also talking about Prince Harry's UK portion of the trip. So be sure to subscribe so you do not miss these updates as they come. I'm trying to get quicker with them. And we also have a lot of other exciting videos coming out. More about that in the description box. So first, it's come out that Meghan actually flew to the UK and met up with Harry before they flew to Africa together. So that kind of makes it look even more spiteful that she didn't attend the anniversary ceremony with Prince Harry for Invictus, because she actually literally came to the UK anyway. But as we established, it does make sense for her to not insert herself into every single Invictus event anyway. So let's just set those awkward optics aside. The first pictures of the trip include these couple of pictures of them arriving. I will say I like Harry's teal suit. It's nice to see him in something other than gray. And Meghan wore this white suit that's very reminiscent of Catherine, the Princess of Wales's perfect white suit. We will be covering these outfits in the fashion edition. Let's skip ahead to this outing. They had an unnecessary outfit change and stopped off to visit a school that apparently is sort of loosely associated with Invictus, and joined a kindergarten session as part of this visit. Meg, for whatever reason, thought that these were good venues to wear this. The side boob and open back would literally be against all school dress codes I have ever seen. And it's just a very inappropriate choice for this setting. I'm sort of shocked, but not really, because it's the Meg. Not to mention this is a really impractical choice as well. It's just wrong, and there's no way around it. On a trip like this, when you're doing something like this as some sort of ambassador or royal adjacent or a representative for something, you could even just look at it like this. In the context of Archewell, the farce that it is, setting that aside, as an ambassador for a charity, diplomacy would be the best approach to follow when it came to thinking about how you conduct yourself, and your outfits are included in that. This sort of an outfit can make other people very uncomfortable, so it's not an appropriate choice. Take these sorts of pictures, for example. Regardless of how comfortable she may be with her own body, totally fine and good, and regardless of how comfortable she may be snuggling into a stranger's bare back, other people often do not share the same levels of comfort with strangers. Her bare back and sides, when getting arm in arm like this with complete and utter strangers, can make them feel really uncomfortable. Where do you place your hands? Maybe you don't want to touch their bare skin or their back. What do you do? It's genuinely uncomfortable for the majority of people when they meet someone they don't know and are faced with this sort of situation of gathering together for a picture like this, and that person's feels naked on the back. They have no fabric on the back of their clothes. It's the same sort of a vibe if you have like really thin fabrics or sheer fabrics. It's kind of uncomfortable for the people who are meant to be snuggled up next to you for this picture. So it's simply impolite to wear something like this in these sorts of settings, not to mention it being at a school and around children. Again, it's not about being prude or not showing skin in general. It's that this is more casual evening dinner out, perhaps a posh brunch maybe, not professional, not a school setting vibe here, this dress. The slight bit of side boob showing, the bare back, disqualify it from being an acceptable outfit choice. Also really needed to be smoothed out across here. There's a lot of seams going on and lumps and bumps. You needed a good structural undergarment going on here, something nice and smoothing, and a slip, or have it lined a little bit extra. When you've got this type of money, you can literally have a built-in extra layer of lining, essentially a built-in slip, so that you can just wear like a one-piece shapewear item or a one-piece undergarment, so you don't have bra lines and you don't have panty lines. And then the dress itself just already has an automatic extra layer to help make sure there's no extra bumps and lumps like this, because it just looks bad. As for the outfit itself, we've established its inappropriate choice, but the biggest thing that stands out with this above all else is how skin-toned it is. It's this sort of peachy beige, and paired with its minimalistic seams, it's really creating a look of the dress being almost non-existent, just sort of melting in, which is kind of alarming in this setting. She's at a school around all these children, and it's like, why does she look almost non-naked? Like a non-naked dress or something, because it's not all sheer the way we see some of those naked dresses on the red carpet, but it's just such a close skin tone for her. It's just strange. It's reading really, really strange in these pictures. I'm just not loving it. It's still sort of a halter neck style, but it's not as extreme as some of them that we've seen her in. So it's not as shoulder dominant as some of her other halter top style moments that she's had. I guess that's a bit of an improvement because it is not as focused on the shoulders as, say, this one from the polo match was. Also, it doesn't create a big focal point of the waistline here, which is good. That benefits her proportions a great deal. It does seem to be a tad droopy, lacking support in the bust area, which I'm not surprised. It has this open back, so you're extremely limited in what you can do for your boobs in that situation. So it's just not really very flattering across the chest area. And as per usual, it's very much too long, way too long. That immediately reads messy and sloppy, making the dress look much more janky than it would otherwise if it had been hemmed properly. I also think for this being a daytime visit, going to a school, things like that, I'm not 100% behind wearing a dress of this nature. But also I think it would be better with minimal jewelry. These sorts of daytime visits just look a lot better and read a lot better with smaller earrings, less gaudy necklaces. This big chunky necklace that she has on is just a bit much for this setting. I think the dress, again, it could have really benefited from some sort of a slip because it also looks a tad clingy, which is adding some visual noise too. So an extra layer of lining would have helped reduce the clinginess that we also see, apart from just smoothing the whole thing out. And there were already a few cringe moments right out of the gate. I've only had about an hour of news from this day, and it's already cringy. Harold and the Meg waste no time. Prince Harry gave a speech of sorts. I hesitate to call it a speech. It was more like talking at these people, but it was about mental health. And he makes the standard talking points of it's okay to not have a good day. Everybody needs to look after themselves, which is all well and good. Totally fine. What's irritating people is primarily the fact that these two say a lot and do very little. What actionable steps have they given these listeners? What are they actually doing beyond this? Well, they say that they're partnering with Genesco, I think is how you pronounce this charity, to make mental health services available to school kids, which I hope they do. And this is an established charity, so Archwell is partnering up to kind of add on to that and take over providing mental health services alongside or through this charity. But the last time they partnered with this charity, they were providing sanitary products and education to girls, and they only gave about 2,000 or so access, which is a drop in the bucket, quite frankly. So if this turns out to be the same thing, where it's a drop in the bucket in terms of its reach, this adding mental health access or education or whatever, then one could argue that the money spent on this trip may have been better put to use expanding access to these causes or funding a bigger impact and widening the availability of services like for sanitary products and mental health access for these youth in Nigeria. Also, I really think that Prince Harry's comments on mental health would carry a lot more weight and be much more well received if he and the Meg had not spent years blaming others for their mental health struggle, sacrificing their staff and their families' mental health and well-being while complaining about their own. Throwing people under the bus in the name of mental health doesn't quite align with best practices when it comes to this subject. Taking full ownership of how you feel and what you're thinking is a big and important and essential step in achieving good mental health. Understanding that your perceptions are your own and not to be blamed on everybody else is a huge part of achieving success in terms of good mental health. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are clearly not great role models in this area. They not only blame others, but they manipulate and lie to the public. Misinformation. And they do it under the guise of their own mental health benefit. That's insane. Now, does this all garner good headlines because they hit all the good standard talking points that are approved and established and have in practice gotten people good headlines? Yes, of course. And this is getting them good headlines at this time. And that is exactly what this trip is all about. But when you look under the tissue paper thin top layer of this, it's very hypocritical. The Meg also had a turn with the mic, of course. And after asking the group how many people had struggled with mental health in the past, she says, this is a quote, so be prepared to be confused. And you want to change the world because of that. Presumably because of the mental health struggles? That makes somebody want to change the world? I don't know, that seems a little overwhelming if you're having a hard time. But regardless, Meghan urged them to keep it inside and take that pain and experience and twist it and turn it and make it into something so strong and beautiful. That sounds like really bad advice. I'm not going to let that happen to anyone else. How? How is she not going to let those things happen to anybody else? Harry's already abandoned children from Sentebale. They've come out and said, Harry said he would be here for us and he's not, and stuff like that. We already know they're not going to do that much in terms of preventing stuff. So this was a real big statement coming from the Meg here. Now, of course, on the face, this message means well. There's no denying that. However, it's again coming off a bit patronizing and hypocritical for all the same reasons that Harry's comments have. This whole keep it inside, that's the exact opposite. How confusing. You're talking to children, to youth. You're telling them to tell people when they don't feel well or happy or, communicate with others how they're feeling. And then she says, keep it inside, like bottle it up. This is why experts should be the ones talking to these people, not Meghan Markle, who clearly doesn't know how to communicate about mental health to children. She doesn't understand it because she's confusing them right here. And then she says, take that pain and experience and twist it and turn it. Well, that's exactly what she and Harry have done. They've twisted everything and turned it around to where they're blaming everyone else for what they have done to people. Bad advice. Very bad advice. She's telling them to be manipulative and she's confusing them. Not okay. What would be good would be for Archewell to send experts there to talk to the children. People who really know what they're talking about and can deliver the message in a meaningful way that will give good, healthy advice. Not this nonsense. I'm also, just a quick side note, I'm kind of surprised she's going to be gone over Mother's Day. I know there's a lot of rumors around about their children and whatnot. I think it's super strange to schedule a trip where you're going to be gone over Mother's Day. Birthdays, I understand, you celebrate a different day. That happens all the time. A lot of us have birthdays fall on a weekday and we celebrate on a weekend after or a weekend before, especially if it's a party. Because you can still do something like a nice dinner or cake or make your kids their favorite food on their actual birth date and then throw them a party the next week. They certainly don't mind because they get 2 parties, they feel like. They get cake twice. It's fabulous for them. But Mother's Day is kind of one of those things that happens on a specific day, just like Christmas or Valentine's Day. You kind of would want to be with your kids that day, wouldn't you? But setting all of this aside, so far, in terms of the press, they are off to a decent start as of right now, filming right now here, right now. That's the biggest blunders that we have, is their awkward speeches and pretty gross choice of outfit. Since they've gone in a private capacity, they are able to control the media like we have not ever seen before in terms of a tour similar to this. Because it is all private, there's no just regular news journalists invited along in a press pack the way royal tours have had. So Harry and Meghan have really strong control over this trip's media coverage. I expect a lot of puff pieces and a lot of good PR over the weekend, but who knows, maybe they'll ruin it just like they did South Africa. And a quick reminder, we do have more on the UK trip and the Nigeria trip and the Met Gala coming up this week. And then we are on to the 3-part special covering the last horribly disastrous mistakes that they made on their South Africa tour, which was an actual royal tour. This one is not. It will be interesting to compare the differences. Very much like this one, it started out really, really good. So we'll just have to see how this pans out. Subscribe so you don't miss these updates coming out. I'll try to get them out as quick as I can. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you have a very happy day ahead, and I will see you next time.